Welcome to the Maryland Hazardous Materials, Hazmat, practice test. Which of these contains the list of all hazardous materials? The Hazardous Materials Table. Found in 49 CFR, this table is the definitive source for every driver and shipper to identify proper names, ID numbers, and required labels for any hazardous substance. Next question. A placarded vehicle must stop at all railroad crossings within how many feet? 15 to 50 feet. You must stop within this range, look, and listen. Never shift gears while physically crossing the tracks, as stalling in the path of a train is a catastrophic risk for hazmat loads. Let's move on. How often must you check the tires on a placarded vehicle with dual tires? Every 2 hours or 100 miles. Frequent checks are mandatory to detect overheating or pressure loss, as a tire fire on a hazmat rig is an immediate, high-consequence emergency. Next point. Who is responsible for certifying that the hazardous material has been packed correctly? The shipper. The shipper must provide the signed certification on the shipping papers, though the driver is still responsible for ensuring the load is secure and properly placarded before moving. Let's keep going. What is the shape of a hazardous material identification label? Diamond. This standard shape allows for quick identification of the hazard class by color and symbol, even from a distance or in low visibility conditions. Next question. Where must the shipping papers be kept while the driver is in the cab? In the door pouch or on the driver's seat. The papers must be within reach, so that if an accident occurs, the driver or a first responder can immediately identify the hazards present. Let's move on. If you are hauling hazardous materials, you must avoid which of the following? Heavily populated areas. Federal regulations require drivers to take routes that minimize the risk to the public, staying away from city centers and crowds whenever a practical alternative exists. Next point. What are the two main places the hazardous material identification number appears? On the shipping paper and the package. This 4-digit UN or NA number is the key to the Emergency Response Guide, ERG, telling responders exactly how to handle a spill. Let's keep going. A vehicle placarded for hazardous materials must have placards on how many sides? 4. Front, back, and both sides must be clearly marked so the hazard is visible to anyone approaching the vehicle from any angle. Next question. When hauling explosives 1, 2, or 1, 3, you must not park within how many feet of the traveled road? 5 feet. Keeping this distance helps prevent a secondary accident from involving your high explosive cargo and ensures you have space to move the vehicle in an emergency. Let's move on. If a shipment is a reportable quantity, RQ, what must appear on the shipping paper? The letters, RQ. This notation indicates that the amount of material is large enough that any spill must be reported to the National Response Center, NRC, immediately. Next point. What is the emergency response telephone number used for? To give info to first responders about the chemicals. This must be a 24-hour number monitored by someone who can provide technical guidance on the material's properties and how to contain a release. Let's keep going. You should never smoke within how many feet of a vehicle loaded with flammables? 25 feet. The risk of ignition from vapor is extremely high. 25 feet is the minimum safety buffer required by law to prevent accidental explosions. Next question. Which hazard class requires a placard regardless of any amount being hauled? Poison gas, Class 2. 3. Materials in Table 1, including poisonous gases and high explosives, are so dangerous that they must be placarded even if you are carrying just a single gram. Let's move on. What must a driver have on their license to transport hazardous materials? An Hazmat endorsement. This requires a background check by the TSA and a written exam to prove you understand the specialized safety protocols of the industry. Next point. How many different hazard classes are there? 9. From explosives, Class 1, to miscellaneous, Class 9. These categories group materials by their primary chemical threat. Let's keep going. If you are hauling hazardous materials through a tunnel, you should check what? Local and state restrictions for that tunnel. Many tunnels strictly prohibit certain classes of hazmat to prevent a disaster in a confined space where evacuation would be nearly impossible. Next question. What is a safe haven? An approved place for parking unattended explosives. Only government-approved locations qualify. You can never leave Class 1, 2, or 3 explosives unattended anywhere else. Let's move on. A person may not smoke within 25 feet of which hazard class? Class 1 explosives. Just like with flammables, the danger of fire or explosion around Class 1 materials is too high to permit any open flames or smoking materials. Next point, what color is the placard for an oxidizer? Yellow. The yellow placard with the flame over a circle symbol warns that these materials can make an existing fire burn much more violently by providing oxygen. Let's keep going. When can you leave a placarded vehicle unattended? Only in a safe haven. For high-risk loads like certain explosives, a driver or qualified representative must be with the vehicle at all times unless it is in a designated secure area. Next question. If you have a wreck and chemicals are leaking, you should do what first? Keep people away in upwind. Safety is the priority. Prevent bystanders from inhaling toxic vapors or approaching an ignition source while you wait for the experts. Let's move on. What is the purpose of the dangerous placard? For mixed loads from Table 2 totaling 1,001 pounds. It is a shorthand warning when you have multiple types of materials that don't individually reach the weight limit for their own specific placards. Next point, where do you find the required placards for a load? On the shipping paper or manifest. The shipper is required to specify which placards are necessary, but the driver must verify that the placards on the truck match the cargo listed. Let's keep going. Which of these is a forbidden cargo for a driver? A leaking package of hazmat. You must never accept or transport a package that is damaged or leaking. It is a primary safety violation and an immediate environmental hazard. Next question. The total transport index of all radioactive packages in a single vehicle must not exceed 50. The transport index, TI, measures the level of radiation. Limiting the total TI ensures that the cumulative radiation exposure stays within safe regulatory limits. Let's move on. If you are hauling explosives 1, you must have what document in the cab? A written route plan. Drivers of high-level explosives must follow a pre-planned path that avoids populated areas and must carry the plan with them at all times. Next point, what must you do if your hazmat shipment is rejected by the consignee? Contact the shipper for instructions. You cannot simply leave the material or return it without a plan. The shipper must provide a legal and safe way to handle the rejected cargo. Let's keep going. When hauling hazmat, you must check your tires every time you park or stop the vehicle. Getting into the habit of checking tires every time you step out of the cab is the best way to catch a dragging brake or a flat before it turns into a fire. Next question. On the shipping paper, the hazard class must be listed as the proper name and/or ID number. Precise identification is the law. Generic names are not allowed for hazardous substances on official shipping documents. Let's move on. If you are hauling chlorine 2-3, what placard is required? Poison gas. Chlorine is a highly toxic gas when inhaled, requiring the specialized poison gas placard to alert responders to the extreme respiratory threat. Next point, a hazard class name or ID number may not be used on shipping papers for non-hazardous materials. You cannot fake a hazmat label or name for a safe load. Doing so causes unnecessary alarm and wastes emergency resources. Let's keep going. What should you do if you discover a leak in your cargo tank? Do not move the vehicle more than is necessary. Get the vehicle off the traveled portion of the road to a safe spot, but stop as soon as possible to minimize the environmental damage. Next question. Who provides the placards for the vehicle? The shipper. The shipper is legally required to offer the correct placards to the driver, though the driver must ensure they are properly mounted and clean. Let's move on. Cargo tanks must have what information on the spec plate? The material used to build the tank. This plate tells inspectors and maintenance crews what the tank is designed to hold and its maximum pressure ratings. Next point, what is the Emergency Response Guide, ERG? A guidebook for responders to handle hazmat accidents. It is the standard manual used across North America to provide immediate safety info during the initial phase of a chemical incident. Let's keep going. When loading hazmat, you should never use tools that might damage the packages. Puncturing a hazmat container with a forklift or a sharp tool can turn a routine loading job into a major hazmat spill in seconds. Next question. Which department regulates the transport of hazardous materials? Department of Transportation, DOT. The DOT's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, PHMSA, writes the rules that every driver in the country must follow. Let's move on. You must notify the National Response Center if which of the following occurs. A person is killed or hospitalized. Any major incident involving death, significant injury, or massive property damage requires an immediate call to the federal authorities. Next point, If your truck has no placards, you may not drive it through areas where placards are restricted by signs. Some tunnels and bridges prohibit placarded vehicles, but you must always follow local signage regarding commercial vehicle routing. Let's keep going. What describes the amount of space a liquid can take up in a tank? Outage. Liquids expand and contract with temperature changes. The outage is the empty space left in the tank to prevent it from bursting as the cargo warms up. Next question. In Maryland, how often must you renew your hazmat endorsement? Every 5 years. This renewal includes a fresh TSA background check to ensure that only those who remain in good legal standing can haul sensitive cargo. Let's move on. Before loading or unloading any flammable liquids, you must ground the vehicle to prevent static. A single spark of static electricity can ignite flammable vapors, so grounding the truck to the loading rack is a life-saving requirement. Next point, a shipping paper for hazmat must be distinguishable from other papers. It should be on top of the stack, tabbed, or in a different color so it is the first thing a responder finds in the cab. Let's keep going. What does the marine pollutant mark indicate? The material is harmful to fish and water. This mark warns that a spill into a river or lake would be devastating to the local ecosystem and requires specialized cleanup. Next question. If you are hauling Division 1 explosives, you must not drive within 300 feet of a bridge or tunnel. If an explosion occurs, the structural damage to a bridge or tunnel would be immense, so drivers must stay clear whenever possible. Let's move on. When can you move a leaking hazmat vehicle? Only to get it off the road to a safe place. Your only goal when moving a leaking truck is to prevent a traffic disaster. Once you are in a safe spot, you must stop and wait for a cleanup crew. Next point, if the word poison is on the label, you should not load it near food or animal feed. Cross-contamination can make food products deadly, so poisonous materials must be kept far away from anything intended for consumption. Let's keep going. Placards must be kept in what condition? Clean and readable. A placard covered in road salt or mud is useless. If people can't read it, you are technically out of compliance and liable for a fine. Next question. What is the first thing you check when picking up a hazmat load? That the shipping papers match the cargo and placards. Professionalism starts in the yard. Verify the UN numbers and hazard classes yourself to ensure the paperwork